fighting for our budget. So you see that there's spontaneous support. No, it's about, I would say, the support for the work that we are doing. But that said, thank you very much. And without further ado, I would like to give you the floor. I'll tell the colleagues the President has a short introductory remarks, and then she has agreed to extend the questions and answers section. So thanks a lot, President. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Stefano. I also thought that you were going to refer to the fact that the closeness between the European Parliament and your service is also because I spent almost 1 year working at the service before I joined the European Parliament. I feel at home here. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. When I saw the title, The New Global Security Environment, I couldn't help thinking what an apt theme for your conference you have chosen, because there is perhaps nothing more urgent, more complex, or more critical for Europe to lead on. You are the face and the voice of Europe around the world, a world where the value of European global leadership and diplomacy must continue to be felt and to make a real difference in people's lives. And this is all the more critical now, when people see a world that too often feels as if it is on fire, where our people and our strategic interests feel threatened, and where malign actors think our value system is a weakness rather than our core strength, and where the rules-based world order is questioned too often. Now, the world needs to hear Europe's voice, now perhaps more than ever. We have overcome centuries of war, of death, and destruction. We have pulled down walls and borders. We have let light in through a seemingly impenetrable iron curtain. And when the world looks to us, they must see leadership, they must see experience to address this new global security environment. And it is Europe that can do that. It is you who can take that across the world. And we need to keep fulfilling our role on the world stage. Europe matters to the world. We hear this everywhere, to humanity. Our project of freedom, of peace, and reconciliation is what gives credibility to our action. Now, looking at the current context at the European Union's borders, Ukraine continues to suffer from Russia's illegal invasion into its territory. We know what is at stake there. Millions of Europeans know from experience exactly what Ukraine is fighting for. And so when we say, and we are asked, and I'm sure you are asked this often, when we say that our support for Ukraine will not waver, we mean it. We cannot allow fatigue to set in, because this is about the security of Europe as well as the security of Ukraine. This invasion of Ukraine is framed by a situation where the people of Belarus continue to endure intense repression from illegitimate authorities. Tensions and revisionism increasingly threaten the fragile equilibrium in the Western Balkans, and just over a month ago, more than 100,000 Armenian refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh were forced to flee. Now today, we are witnessing a situation in Gaza that is desperate, that has become a humanitarian crisis that threatens millions. And that is why Europe, the European Parliament, over 2 weeks ago called for a pause in hostilities to allow for humanitarian aid in. This is why we push for regional de-escalation and respect for international law. And this is why we have pushed, and we very much welcome, the increase of EU humanitarian aid going to Gaza, up to 100 million euros. Now, nothing, and I repeat, nothing can excuse the rape, mutilation, abduction, torture, and murder of entire communities, children, women, men, and young people. And we have to be clear that these horrific acts were committed by a terrorist organization. Hamas does not represent the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people. Hamas cannot be allowed to act with impunity. They must be stopped, and kidnapped hostages must be released. Now, we must end terror, but how that happens matters to all of us. We must be able to do that within international law, while ensuring as much as possible the safety of civilians and critical civilian infrastructure. Because how Israel responds matters to Europe and to the world. The October 7th attack has poured fuel onto a fire in the Middle East that perhaps the international community and Europe too had left smouldering for too long. And therefore, we cannot be lulled into complacency while we focus on the immediate challenges of ensuring humanitarian aid, of stopping terror, of protecting innocent lives, of insisting on the respect for international law. We must also think about the day after, about what happens next, about how we can help to rebuild lives in Gaza, give a real future to the people, and ensure regional stability. And I will be discussing this with the King of Jordan in Brussels tomorrow. Now, in Europe, we know extremism provides no real way forward, and the only answer must be political. We must continue to support a fair and a just solution based on the coexistence of two states, a situation that will mean hope and real perspective for the Palestinian people and security and safety for Israel. We can find both, and we must find both. And to do this, our response must involve more diplomacy. Our external actions must continue to be guided by our founding values. We say this a lot, but we don't say it enough, or when we say it quickly as part of a sentence to bring us to the next. But at the end of the day, what we are witnessing is the normalization of violence over dialogue. And that worries me and all of us. As EU ambassadors, you are both the primary observers and the first respondents to new global dynamics. And at times like this, as the High Representative rightly always says, it is for diplomacy to step up. It is the only way. Now, in Europe, we must start to think about ourselves. People ask, haven't you already been thinking about this? Not enough. As a continental player, this will allow us to speak on an equal footing with other global continents. And it is true that this requires a shifting of our mindset. While Africa is being exposed to destabilization and lured by others, Europe must abandon any trace of condescending bad habits with regards to this great continent and start treating African countries as real partners. We must speak with rather than to countries. And we must focus on investment in this particular continent as much as we do about migration. The same is true for our relationship with Latin American countries. as is the need to give new impetus to our historic transatlantic relationship. Now, where does the European Parliament come in? First, we will continue to push forward parliamentary diplomacy. We will do this by opening different liaison offices around the world, together with the External Action Service, and thanks a lot for all the help that you have given so far. And here, my appeal would be to ensure that there is genuine cooperation and coherence as Team Europe. This is also so true when you interact with parliaments in the locations you are posted. I spoke last year when we met about the new angle of parliamentary diplomacy, how it has taken on a new role. Parliaments across the world, we work together with over 160 parliaments around the world, even more since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and since then, in looking at what we do on climate, on digital, on artificial intelligence, but also now, when we call, as we did, for a humanitarian pause, when we call or recall resolutions that have been adopted in the past. Because your discussions that you have in your places of posting feed into our committee discussions and into our resolutions adopted by the plenary. And this is because in a geopolitical environment where we have witnessed the weaponization of food, of energy, of migration, the weaponization of information and interference in our democratic processes, speaking with one voice is not only necessary, but it is vital. And without European unity, the EU's credibility is weakened. And another role that I see as essential that you hold is to present that European unity and to rebuke false narratives. And to do this, we need better interinstitutional cooperation, because now more than ever is the time to develop a holistic and inclusive EU foreign affairs approach. I will turn finally to the next few months. We will face elections across all member states in June next year. And that is why what the 705 current members of the European Parliament, when they bring foreign affairs messages back home to their constituencies, not only are they assuring the democratic legitimacy of our decisions, but also to place their stamp, our stamp, Europe's stamp, on decisions that we take. Our aim in the run-up to the elections is to make sure that the pro-European centre remains a driving force in our union. And we will need your help to inform citizens who live in the countries where you are posted to vote. We will have 4 countries where 16-year-olds will vote for the first time. That's a specific campaign we need to run. We need to encourage people to realize, but also for us to explain that everything we do here, whether in Brussels, in Strasbourg, in each and every capital city, it matters for them. It matters that citizens are involved. It matters that we listen to what citizens want from the next 5 years. The last 5, I'm sure we can say, we will say this in May and June, have not been easy. And this is without knowing what will happen between now and June, but we can safely say that that is what we will be able to say. But this is in our interest to ensure that such dialogue, such responsibility is taken, such leadership is given, and in order to continue to tell our citizens that we have managed to ensure a sustainable and lasting peace because we did not become complacent. And if we were, then this success of ours should not be taken for granted. So, in spite of all the challenges, looking forward to answering your questions, I'm confident that we can step up and meet the moment and guarantee that the essential place of diplomacy is really here if we are to find lasting solutions. I was taught when I became a diplomat that diplomacy is hope and it must prevail. It's something I continue to believe still. Thank you. Did I have more time?